Hey guys, so today I wanted to bring you a video about the top 5 things I don't want to see in Path of Fire. So I put them in kind of the thing I don't want to see the most as number 1 and the rest going decreasing. So let's start with number 5. So number 5, fighting only one faction. In Heart of Thorns, the only faction we engaged in combat was the Morgem. Now, while Aina added enough new variations to the Morgem to keep it fresh and new, Path of Fire should be, and hopefully will be, a completely different story. This time, rather than rushing to get the expansion out, it's been worked on by one team and they've had enough time to develop it properly. Rather than one faction in the expansion, it will be nice to see 2 or 3 or maybe even 4. Now, we know Balthazar's Forged are invading the desert, and that Palau Joko has his awakened. We can also assume the Branded will feature too. So already it's a step in the right direction in my opinion. Hopefully our internet keeps it up, and maybe we can discover new factions in new areas such as the chilly northern borders of the desert. Number 4. Transport that can only be used during the story. So this is an issue that isn't a massive deal again. So in this story, we take an airship from Lion's Arch to Amnoon Oasis. In previous story chapters, such as Flashpoint and One Path Ends, we had similar journeys by sub and by boat. What I don't want to see is, after I've completed Path of Fire and I've returned to LA, is that the same airship I took to the desert is sitting by the lighthouse with me not being able to use it to travel back to Amnoon. Now this could be fixed by either just letting us take the airship, or by making the airship invisible to characters who have taken it, and instead have a smaller commercial airship that ferries the players and maybe some random NPCs to and from the desert, for maybe a fee that's, I don't know, half the price of a waypoint. Now, number 3, a set time for meta events. Now this point is all about player convenience. Not every person has the time to wait for the start of a meta event, and then the time to continue it for upwards of an hour. While I like the concept of this style of meta, it just doesn't suit everyone. I think the solution would be having an event similar to the Dragon's Stand starting event to start the meta. This way there can be multiple maps running the meta at different stages. Obviously though, a buff would have to be added to stop a repeat of the Terrir problem. Number 2. Mastery or experience gated story chapters. In Heart of Thorns, there were a handful of instances where you would finish a story chapter, go to start the next chapter, but be told by the game, no, you need to unlock this ability by earning this much experience. While this might make sense for the narrative and continuity, for example, if the game allowed you to glide in the story instance but not in the open world, purely to progress the story, it wouldn't make sense. However, creating these forced breaks in the story and making the player farm experience is frustrating for the players who are invested in the story and are just trying to play through the story. So far, it looks like they have fixed this issue. We've seen it in the demo. You'd earn the Raptor mount, the first Path of Fire mastery, in the first story instance. Hopefully ArenaNet keeps this going throughout Path of Fire and beyond. And finally, number 1, buggy boss fights and encounters. Now, there's nothing worse than going through a story chapter that's instanced, getting to the final encounter or boss, when all of a sudden, something goes wrong. Especially if it's your first time at the encounter, and you're not quite sure if you're missing something or if it's bugged. Now this has been the case for me with both the Morgemoth fight in the final chapter of Heart of Thorns and the Lazarus fight in the final chapter of Living World Season 3. Now thankfully in Living World Season 3 they had a much better checkpoint system, but it was still annoying having to restart the encounter, especially so close to the end of the story. Whereas in the Morgemoth fight, it was just you had to restart the whole instance again, and it was such a pain. Hopefully, seeing as Path of Fire is not being expedited like Heart of Thorns was, there'll be less bugs and more fun. Anyway, that is my list, guys. I do hope you enjoyed. What did you think about this? And are there any things that you don't want to see yourself in Path of Fire? Make sure to subscribe for more Guild Wars 2 content in the future, and I'll see you guys tomorrow in the desert. I cannot wait.